Hello, sisters, and welcome to Go Solo Live. This is Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel. It's time to sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy my conversation with Mary Beth McCabe as she shares about her adventures and her book, The World's First Guide to Independent Travel.
Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean Go Solo Live? Have you ever been asked, why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Joining me today is Mary Beth McCabe, and she'll be sharing some of her solo travel stories that started her journey on writing a book and helping others with solo travel. Welcome, Mary Beth.
Hi, how are you, Jennifer?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you for joining me today to get started on sharing your stories. So the podcast Go Solo Live is really meant for midlife women to feel like they're not the weirdos when they're traveling solo. And I've come across that so often. Your solo travels started a while ago. This is not a new thing for you. It's not a new phenomenon, though it's a current popular phenomenon. When you started to tell people that you were traveling solo, what did they think?
I was one of the first to coin the idea of independent travel. And so my book is called The World's First Guide to Independent Travel. And I felt that this was a category that was going to be important throughout the next several decades. And so I encourage people to ask questions about independent travel and to talk about solo travel. I never really felt weird about it. I just felt like this was a very normal thing if you could get the time away and the opportunities created themselves. So I never felt strange about it. It was just very natural for me because Jennifer, my first trip was when I was 15.
Okay. Tell me more.
So my dad dropped me off at O'Hare Airport at the curb, and I had purchased my own ticket from Chicago to New York, where I had lived. So I spent 3 weeks in New York on my own as a 15-year-old, bouncing from friends' houses to others and all through Penn Station and all the places that New Yorkers like to go. So to me, that was a very normal experience at a young age. And so right at the start, in fact, but I do remember my dad dropping me off at O'Hare Airport and me saying, like, aren't you going to come with me? And he's like, no, you're just going to go in there and do it. So it was like, dive in, go for it.
So he was supportive and encouraging about that, which is fantastic.
So I have 4 children now, and their ages are 16, 18, 21 this week, and 22. And they seem to have taken up this travel bug. So my 22-year-old currently lives on her own in Shanghai. She's in year 2, and she teaches English at a university. So I think this travel bug, and my 21-year-old is going to visit her, just spoke an hour ago. She bought a round-trip ticket for under $500. So we are passing on the travel bug as well as the ability to make it.
Well, I think that sense of adventure when that is in a parent, it certainly is something that they're very much able to foster in their kids. But that I find it interesting, again, like thinking about the time that it was in the world that your dad was dropping you off at O'Hare. And it was certainly before the age of cell phones. You know, like I love just reframing and putting perspective around that for people, because when somebody goes to travel solo right now, it's not like they're going to be out of communication for a day, much less weeks, months, or even longer. So how do you think that, you know, your dad was like, just go, here are your wings, go fly. But how do you think that was like fostered in you within your family growing up, if you were doing that at 15 years old?
So it just seemed very normal for me with growing up with a large family. And I'd only been on a plane once before. And that was when we flew from New York to Chicago as the move. And I wanted to go back. I thought the Big Apple's where I belong, and I need to get back there. I felt like Chicago was a farm. And that was, I was
comparatively, right?
I was sheltered. I was not really wise to what the rest of the world had to offer.
Amazing.
And so, long story short, I moved to San Diego in '82 alone, didn't have a job or know anybody. And that was the beginning of travel from the West Coast. Before I took that trip, I took a month and went to Tahiti and to Australia and to New Zealand and to Fiji. And I had a girlfriend with me, but we really were alone for a month.
Absolutely.
And then when I moved back here, took the trip to San Diego and have been here since. And so all of my adventures seem to be launching from the West Coast now. So yeah, I'd love to share. The adventure of travel is about experiencing things firsthand. And I think that even millennials today, the experience is really what they're seeking.
Well, and, many times they're living vicariously through technology from other people. And I think the opportunity to go and do it for yourself. But the reality is we will never get the chance to do it like was done so many years ago, where just really detached. And I'm not necessarily going to say isolating. That I believe that we isolate ourselves in various ways. They don't have to be an isolated experience, but it's certainly a detached from communication experience, which then I think makes you immerse more, connect more, and really take it in a different way than when people are trying to capture pictures for social media and share their trip and their experience back with others. So I see that as different. You said actually one of your guilty pleasures is enjoying other people's travel stories. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love this podcast, because you don't get to see people's, to tell people to show me your pictures from a trip. Nobody does that anymore, because if you didn't catch them on social media, that's moved on. So I'd love to hear what are some of your, pick your top three places that you've been. And I know that's the ridiculous question that nobody can narrow down to their top three, but give it to me anyway.
Okay. So in college, backpacking through Ireland on our own, hitchhiking, and getting picked up by a farmer who brought me to his home and let me watch the cows being milked. And it was a vet actually going to and from different farms in Ireland, and staying in youth hostels there was what a wonderful experience. These were castles, and you paid $3 or $4 a night, and you did some chores. So it was a group experience because you cooked together with the others. So youth hostels are tremendous for getting to know other people from across the country and across the world.
Absolutely.
And I'll also mention, I mentioned the 4 weeks in Tahiti. So we were in Moorea. We were next door to the Club Med, and we were camping for $1 a night underneath the stars and the beautiful canopy of pineapple trees and coconut trees. And this campfire was a global United Nations, everyone from all around the world. And like I said, next door to a high-priced, high-touch environment, I enjoyed where we were so much more.
Wow.
And yes, it poured on us, and I didn't have a tent, but somehow I ended up grabbing a tent with other people and hitchhiked my way back to the main island the next morning, where we got to the airport and found out that our plane had left 12 hours before, and we still had to wait 2 more days for the next flight to Australia. So what had happened was airline tickets back then were written out by hand. And our travel agent had written PM, and the flight had left at AM.
Oh boy. Okay.
So our guests that we met in Tahiti invited us to an anniversary party. They gave us clothes to wear, and we enjoyed the celebration and stayed 2 more days in Tahiti. Oh, that was too bad. No, but it was great. And we had to
that
rebook
sounds
everything
amazing.
in Australia, though. So our whole trip to Australia was off. So that's 2 stories. Should I go on?
Oh, I'd love one more for sure.
Okay. So skiing in South America. If you haven't been down to Chile, there's a wonderful city called Santiago, and English is fine down there. People understand your English. So in July, here I am carrying my skis into the San Diego International Airport.
Right.
And everyone's looking at me, and yeah, it was fun. So got to a place called Portillo, and it was amazing because the U.S. ski team was practicing there. So I got to ski with the Olympics team skiers because there was nobody else around, and it was just an amazing experience to enjoy Chile and just be with my brother Joe, the 2 of us, for several. It was probably about 10 days or so.
That's incredible.
You good trips, yeah.
So, those are some of the things that you've done. Like, I guess my question is, as a traveler, are you a bucket list girl? Or are you an opportunist girl? Like, what makes you sing about some of this travel stuff?
Well, I booked a trip this morning.
Okay.
Here's a heads up. Make sure that you just pay attention to when tickets go on sale. So I booked a $29 flight each way.
Where are you going?
Oakland.
San
Diego.
Okay.
Yeah. So my daughter's up at college there, and I'm going to go stay with her. We're going to explore San Francisco, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And romantic, it's a mother-daughter trip, but we're going to have a blast. So I think the tips I want to offer is to pay attention to the dates that maybe are the low travel dates for the airlines. So you won't be traveling with everybody else.
What tools are you using to kind of watch for those deals?
I'm a big social media fan.
Okay.
I use lots of social media. I teach, so I'm also a professor at National University, and I teach courses in mobile marketing and social media.
Okay.
So I'm very active in social media. So pay attention, get alerts on your mobile devices, and ask your friends. Here's the thing though, you're not always going to be able to find somebody to go with you.
Absolutely.
So be not afraid to go to a new adventure and see and you're never alone when you are comfortable in a city. You really aren't alone because there's plenty of other people that'd be happy to talk to you.
I agree. And yeah, I believe you're only as alone as isolated as you choose to be. And sometimes that's an important part of people's trips, but it's not how things have to be. And so I am very much a fan of, making sure that you have your balance of alone time and connected time, but it doesn't have to be isolating. Some of my favorite apps for watching flights, I love using Hopper. Have you heard?
I've loaded that on my phone this past month.
Perfect. Yeah. So Hopper is great. Yeah. Because you can put in your possible trips and it'll report when the price, it has a predictability algorithm. So it'll report when it thinks it's going to be the best price.
Yeah.
I've had good luck and I've had some not good luck.
Yeah.
But with Hopper, I will say one thing that I was impressed with was they had a really good level of service. I don't always purchase my tickets direct through them. I sometimes go direct through the airline. The one time I purchased through them, I needed to make a change to my ticket and a mistake was made and they fixed it in a way that was super fast, organized, and I could not have been more pleased. So I appreciate when organizations do a good job at that.
Yeah.
I also love Google Flight, but other suggestions that you have on actual tools that you like to use?
Well, I love Airbnb.
Ah, yes.
I do love Airbnb. I have traveled extensively globally using Airbnb. So whether it's for 1 or 2 nights or whether it's for a week, I've had some very interesting and warm experiences. I'll give you a domestic trip. I went to Washington, D.C. for a few days and stayed with a wonderful host who lent me a bicycle. So I got the bike on the subway and rode all around Washington's mall on a bike. So she didn't charge me any extra and just had the most enjoyable experience. And it was 95 degrees that day. So having a bicycle really cooled me off.
I agree. And yeah, there's a lot of excellent, I'm not going to say frills, but bonuses or benefits. I'm a huge Airbnb fan as well and have had very good luck.
They're now taking reservations for restaurants.
What?
Yes. They're in selective cities. Yes. So I can also book a restaurant with them.
Okay. I'm going to have to keep my eyes open for that part.
Yeah.
So
I also have a business. I'm a marketing consultant, and I represent a few restaurants, one that's opening very soon, and it's in the San Marcos area. And if anybody happens to be traveling to San Diego, the name of the restaurant, I'll just give it to you. It's called Landon's Gourmet Kitchen. And what's really nice about this is you can take your child with you. Let's say you're traveling and you want to have a meal, but you don't want to have your child with you. Maybe you have a meeting with somebody, or maybe you want a romantic night out with your husband. So the child care is there on premise.
What?
You can look through the window and see your kid having fun in the playroom, but you can enjoy your meal. Isn't that a special thing? Gourmet, yes. Farm to table, yes. Brand new, yes. And close to your heart if you're a parent who can't get out to dinner.
That is
because the babysitter canceled or whatever happened, right?
That is amazing. That is amazing. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
You know, I think what's fun is like places are finding new ways to serve. And I love that there's that creativity and innovation. And then it becomes really easily accessible when it's delivered through, a way like Airbnb, because more people will hear about it.
Yes.
So cool. Okay. So one of the things that you were a groundbreaker on is your book. I'd love you to tell me a little bit about what encouraged you to write your book. Tell us what the book is, where to find you, all that kind of stuff, because you were groundbreaking at that.
So I've always been an innovator. That's just been my mantra. Try something new. And I want to share that with other people too. I really want to encourage you to try something new. Break out of your mold and experience. So I was starting my own company in 1993 because I saw the internet starting and I saw the opportunities for marketing. Up until that point, I had for 11 years worked as a sales rep for a television station. I'd already had my MBA, my doctorate degree, and I had taught at a number of universities. So I thought, now's a good time, single, start your own company. So Sun Marketing was launched, and I didn't have a product.
Got it.
What do I create? I know I can create for other people, but to prove that, let me create something. So what have I done? Well, I've traveled to every continent on my own. Why not write about that experience? Okay, so got the team together, put the project into place, and over the course of about a year, this was born. And it wasn't easy because even publishing back then was a challenge. But we used it on a MacBook, and I was one of the first to use certain kind of publishing tools, and it's graphically beautiful and not a single mistake in it. And one of the really fun things about this book is that General Chuck Yeager, the famous pilot, who's now on Twitter, by the way, and you should follow him because he writes some phenomenal tweets. He was my go-to guy. He epitomized travel for me. The guy who broke the speed of sound. Now, that's travel.
Yeah.
So when I was flying from Denver to Indy for the Indy 500,
sure,
my flight was overbooked in Denver. I volunteered to spend the night and to rebook the next day, and I was put on first class. Who was my seatmate? The general. So for 4 hours, we talked and drank and had the best time. And I asked him if I could help him drive the pace car, but that didn't go.
You tried.
It was a great, great event. So a few months later, when I was writing, maybe it was a couple of years later, when I was writing this book, I thought, who can I ask to write the introduction?
Sure.
And I thought of the experience that I had with him, and I made it really easy for him to write the introduction. I back then we had cassette tape recorders. So
back then you had tape recorders?
So I was able to get him to record his message and then keep the tape recorder and send the cassette back to me in a self-addressed stamped envelope. So not only did I get the dedication, but I also got the recording, which if you go to my website, drmarytravelbest.com, you'll listen to it. So we did an audio book as well. So it was a really good experience to have the general who's still living today and just out there. So if you are thinking of who can inspire me to travel, go to the general, Chuck Yeager. Follow him on Twitter. He's just amazing.
That's a wonderful story. And the fact is, like, it's not like this one-dimensional, like, yeah, this one time I sat next to somebody. Like, that's a relationship building story. That's one of the things that's so rich about what we're doing when we're doing solo travel.
Yes, absolutely. I have so many wonderful stories to share and just plenty of time. So I'm still experiencing travel. I went back to Shanghai, China in December, and it had been 38 years since I visited. So really a lot had changed. And
absolutely,
sometimes I want to encourage solo travelers to go back to a new place with a new perspective and see what's different. Because as solo travelers, we like to go to new places, don't we?
Mm-hmm, for sure.
What about going back and seeing something in a new light, in a new phase of your life too?
You know, that's something that I've talked about on previous episodes of the podcast as well, is that when you're going to a place, you're looking at it through your current lens and your current experience, and that's the best way to evaluate it. But, you know, you revisit that same place in 10 years, and while the place may have changed, which is great, what you notice about the place will be different because you're different and your experiences are different. And so it is an opportunity to go to, you never have that same experience once, or more than once. I'll tell people that New Zealand is my place. And I've been there 3 times and to all different parts of the islands. And it's something that I treasure. But you can never recreate what it was like to do it for the first time.
Can I tell you my New Zealand story?
Please.
Okay, so in Australia, we met this wonderful friend, and he's passed on, but he said, you have to go stay with my mom when you go to Auckland. So we did.
Yeah.
We knocked on her door and we said, your son referred us, and she brought out the photo albums of the American occupation, how America basically in World War II helped New Zealand become safe.
Wow. And
so they love Americans over there. So it was like going to Granny's house, but she was someone else's granny. And just amazing in New Zealand, being able to hitchhike safely all around and to take off on a glacier and land on a glacier. You might have done that, or the fjords down in the South Island. Just some real amazing, and met a wonderful gentleman named Ulrich Gembart, who was from Germany, who had been with the BBC, and that was his favorite place in the world. And later on, I went to go visit him in Germany. So who you meet is really important on these trips.
Absolutely. And you know what I love is now in this day and age, social media allows us to stay connected in an entirely different way than we ever had the option of doing so in the past. And that just it's astounding to me that that's even possible.
Yes, social media is a connector, and it can be an intrusion in some respects. It can be a time waster for some others, but I think that you can be interconnected. Your interactivity is so much richer, and one-way communication is on its way out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's such a fantastic opportunity for, you know, when I look at younger people and their friends list, I use air quotes around that, you know, how they have naturally formed these connections with people all over the world. I believe when we look at that generation 10, 15 years from now and what travel is like for them, I believe it's going to have more of that couch surfing feel, where they just will have been connected with so many people from around the world that will be very easy to say, hey, I just want to go here. Who do I know, or who knows somebody that I can stay with?
Absolutely. We hope to open our home to some Chinese exchange students in the future based on other friends of our daughter that live in Shanghai right now. So looking forward to that. And we had
Exactly.
exchange students from Austria this year stay with us, which was really fun.
It really is fantastic. So, what are some of the key things that when you're talking about your book, and what were some of the key messages that you wanted to make sure that people really understood about solo travel? Again, because when you're putting this out, it's not that it was a new concept. I think getting it shared in the way that you were sharing it with people was a newer concept.
So one of the things I want to talk about is health. When you're on your own, you've got to carry your own toolbox for health. And you really need to be careful about what you eat and drink, because if you're sick, that really does put a dent into what's going on. As far as being healthy, that's really critical. And I'm sure you would agree with me on this. So you need to carry a few basic things with you, but preventative is really the key. So make sure you have your shots, make sure you have your medical records, whatever. And I do give a few tips as far as, ace bandage, alcohol wipes, Band-Aids, moleskin, Neosporin cream, adhesive tape, roll gauze, aspirin, 4x4 sterile pads. I mean, these are a few things that pack small. And I used to carry just a small bottle of water on my trips. 2 ounces or 3 ounces was what I carried with me on my person, because I knew that when I got to that next country, there may not be some water for me to drink.
Right. Yep. Little things like that can really make a huge difference. So health is imperative, because without that, you're having a miserable time and you've just paid a lot of money for nothing good.
And then jet lag, of course. Now, there's lots of things that you can do about jet lag to avoid it, to try to get on the time zone of where you're headed even before you go. So don't try to, worry about it. Just do something about it. Try to make it real. And I think some people have a better experience one direction or another. So the more you travel, you're going to get to know yourself. So food and shelter, health, I think these are really important things. But do try new things when you get to new places. I think that's really important to go, eat in different types of places and experience new things. I'm not saying street food necessarily, but good, healthy meals that are going to be resonated. Start off your day with a good meal, I'd say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And food is such a cool part of the travel experience. So it's just something that really nobody should miss out on if they can avoid.
So when I got to China in 1988, before Tiananmen Square, I was phenomenal. I mean, there was no single women, and I'm 5'10", so they thought I was a boy. There's things going on there. But there was a hepatitis breakout, and they had no vaccine. And so the messages that I heard were, do not eat out and do not shake hands.
Wow.
I'm on my own, and I'm there for a month.
Right.
So I really had to be careful about those two things.
Right.
When I got
Holy
back
cow.
to the States, that's when I got my shots, because when there's no vaccine in the country, you really do have to be on your toes.
Yeah. And those are things that you can't, I want people to be smart. I want people to be prepared. But if you try to prepare for every single thing, you're going to drive yourself crazy, and, you're not going to be fully immersed in the experience. So it's about finding out, what that balance looks like.
Yeah. And here's kind of a funny thing. My friends say that I'm directionally challenged. So maybe I am at times. And I've drawn some maps that maybe I put the water on the wrong side. The thing is, if you get lost, enjoy it. Don't stress about it. Make that part of the adventure, and just in a small way, go with it until you find yourself back on track.
I truly appreciate that perspective, and I align with that. I kind of feel like there is no getting lost when you're traveling, except it feels really cruddy if you're trying to be somewhere at a certain time and you're missing out because you did get lost. But panic is not a good option, because the reality is maybe you were supposed to get lost. Maybe there was something in that moment that you were supposed to see. One of the things that, and this is what I did in New Zealand, is I did a ton of walking, which is what you do, which is great. But I would usually take a bus to a particular destination. So I'd always take a bus out and then I'd walk my way back. And so I knew I wouldn't be completely exhausted, but it would always take me to different directions that I might not have tried. And, Google Maps or whatever tool we're using, it might not tell you the type of neighborhood you're walking through or things like that. So it is important to be aware of your surroundings. But in general, if I'm doing this in daylight, which I always was, it was just this opportunity to feel this sense of adventure and exploration. And I'm not a hiker. Like, I'm not going to go out into nature and stretch myself that way. So I'm an urban traveler. And that was my way to go and explore my urban setting and stretch myself. And we all have that.
So I've done the bus trip often, but most of these bus trips are in a circle.
Yes.
So you can stay on the bus the whole trip and just come back to the destination, so you won't get lost. They'll bring you right back to where you started.
That is true. So those are like the hop on, hop offs, which is great. I actually usually, if I can, I'll take the local public transportation.
This is the city buses, right?
Oh, yeah, I guess that's on a loop too when you think about that.
Yes, and it's a lot cheaper than those hop on, hop off buses too.
Amen.
So, on a budget, did this in Valparaiso, Chile. Just jumped on a bus that was going in a loop. Actually got off and got back on, but it was somebody invited me to lunch with them, and I did that. I mean, it was just amazing. So
I love it. I love it. I mean, what better way to really explore and see? So I think that's fantastic. So as you share your words of wisdom or words of encouragement for someone who's thinking about maybe traveling independently for their very first time, what are the suggestions that you have for baby steps?
Buy a globe.
Buy
a globe. Spin it around and see where your finger lands and explore about that country. So that's a baby step. And you can picture yourself going to those places. If you don't want to get a globe, get a world map and just hang it over your kitchen table. So every time you're having a meal, you look up and you think, and anytime you meet somebody, you might put a little sticker where they're from. So those are baby steps to get you to where you want to be. How do you like those?
I love that. That's part of like just that idea of inspiration. And I have a group that I work with that has a small book club, and their way of getting inspired is they pick a new country and then everybody can read whatever book they want related to that country. And so you have some reading fiction, some reading nonfiction, some reading historical, and it's fascinating because they're all getting this comprehensive picture about an area by sharing with each other about what they've read. And I think that that's a great way to get inspired and then have that anticipation of what might be. Cool. Well, good. Well, I would like to make sure that everybody knows where and how to connect with you. You've mentioned that you have your website and things like that. Let's make sure, and all of this will go in the show notes, but why don't you tell people where to find you, Mary Beth?
Well, I'm Mary Beth McCabe, and I'm also Dr. Mary Travel Best. And so I am on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I have a webpage, drmarytravelbest.com. You'll also find me through LinkedIn, and I'm also on Snapchat. I'm on Instagram. You name it, I'm on that social platform. And so I expect to be on several others over the next few generations. So looking forward to hearing more about travel and Go Solo Live. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for the opportunity to be here. I'd love to continue the conversation.
Thank you so much for your time today, Mary Beth, and I look forward to staying connected as well.
Thanks, Jennifer. Take care.
Wasn't it great to hear the stories that Mary Beth shared with us today? It's important to remember that when you see a place you'll never see it that way the same again. That's why it's great to go back to the same place more than once after time. Your perspective is different and the place has changed as well. If you love these stories and want to help support Go Solo Live, you can do that by making a small financial contribution to the show. There are lots of options with some great gifts of appreciation. Just go to www.patreon.com/GoSoloLive to show your love. That's patreon.com. Now we've reached the end of today's episode, but the conversation doesn't have to end there. Continue to find us on Facebook at Transform Via Travel, or follow us on Twitter at Go Solo Live. And if you like what you've heard, invite your friends to listen to Go Solo Live. If you want to be a guest, reach out to me directly at Jennifer@transformviatravel.com. And remember, until next time, just go solo, not alone.